Okay, so standard error, when you think about standard error, basically standard error is a value that tells you how good your sample and how well your mean represents the population, okay? Because a lot of times in inferential statistics, what we're doing is we're taking a sample and we're ultimately saying our sample represents the population. So we know that standard deviation represents the how well the mean of the sample is represented, and then standard error is taking that average that you've collected from your sample and making sure that it is representative of the population. So in this slide that you can see here, it is also represented on page 49 in your textbook. This is basically explaining what standard error is. All right, so if I have a population of people and I pull multiple samples from that population, so I pull this sample, measure them, whatever it is I'm measuring, and I throw them back. I pull another sample, throw them back, pull another sample, throw them back, and I'm going to get a mean and I'm going to get a standard deviation for every single one of these groups that I measure. Then what you do is you calculate an average of those standard deviations, and those average of those standard deviations then represent your standard error. Problem with that is we don't ever do that, right? Well, normally what we do is we take one sample out of the population and we get a mean, we get a standard deviation, and then we can then calculate the standard error. And that standard error then tells us how good our mean represents the population. So if you have a very large standard of error, then in essence you have a wide variability in your data, and you might question that data, versus if you have a small standard error, then you can say my mean is a good representation of my population.